Today, lots of people will give you many different definitions of what they think financial success is. But when we pull back the curtain and take a harder look at what financial prosperity really looks like, what are we seeing? Let's pull back that curtain today. George Carlin, one of my favorite comedians, he had a quote that said, most people will work just hard enough to not get fired, and most employers will pay them just enough to not quit. I think that's very true even today, that we all feel like we're working too hard for too little, and the employers probably feel like they're paying too much, right, and not getting enough for their dollars. So there is a whole nother group known as the financially prosperous, the wealthy, the rich. They're not thinking about these things. They're, living off of their income. They're living off of their wealth. They're living off of their investments. And a lot of us think that, well, that's financial prosperity. That's what it looks like. When I was a kid, I thought that lifestyles of the rich and famous was what financial prosperity looked like. I thought it was stuff. Right? I'd watch this show and it would be people on speedboats and jet skis and motorcycles and fast cars living in these big mansions. And I'd say, that's the financially prosperous. That's financial prosperity. But what does it really look like? And what does it really mean, more importantly, to be the type of person who can become wealthy, who can become financial prosperity? Because there's plenty of people that have money but aren't happy, and of course there's plenty of people who make money but then lose it all. But the type of person that's secure in their financial prosperity, what are we really looking at there? You see, I've had the opportunity to interview and sit down and talk with a lot of financially prosperous people, and I learned that when I really talk to them and get inside of what's going on, it's never about the what. It's always about the who. In other words, who they had to become to achieve what they have achieved. And I've discerned and sort of ripped apart and come up with, I feel, the top 3 qualities that these people might inherently have developed over time. This might have not even been something that they were born with. Maybe it's something they had to truly work at, think about, and then put to work for themselves. And these qualities, the interesting thing about them is it's not just something that applies to finance, it just applies to being successful, period, in life, maybe helping you with your overall happiness and achievement of goals, and not just the financial ones. So let's kind of dive into these 3 ideas, if you will, and see how that we could develop them. The first one is that the super successful and financially prosperous always, to me, seem to be organized. And I mean very organized, a place for everything and everything in its place. When one of my friends will come pick me up in their Bentley and I get into the Bentley, yes, maybe there is a Starbucks coffee sitting there in the cup holder, but there's not 4 more dirty cups in the back. There's not every receipt from everywhere they've gone, and all kinds of other messes like clothing piled up or paperwork or whatever. If I look in the back seat, I'm probably going to see a briefcase and maybe an umbrella. It's the same way when I go to their office. See, if I go to their office or they come to mine, when they walk in, there's not papers piled up everywhere and all kinds of boxes with notes and 20 million notepads everywhere. I can see the desk. I can see the cup of coffee. I can see the notepad or the cell phone on the charger. Sure, there's things there, but everything's sort of in its place. It works. If I was interviewing an accountant to do my accounting work and I walked in and I saw that his office was in a complete disarray, everything was a mess, and he was shuffling around looking through files and papers and trying to figure out what he wanted to show me, that's not the guy I would want doing my accounting work. See, organization is key. I wrote about this in one of my first books, Setting Golden Goals, and I called it mental junkyard. Mental junkyard, it's exactly what it sounds like. If I get in someone's car and their car's in absolute turmoil, or I go to their home and everything is everywhere, from laundry piled up to mail in 3 different places, car keys are here, purse is over there, the shopping is over there, and they don't know where anything is, then they're living in this sort of junkyard. Well, that junkyard started up here. It's a mental junkyard. That is a direct reflection. What your car looks like, what your office looks like, what your bedroom looks like, whether the bed is made or not. This is all a direct reflection of your mental junkyard. And if you're suffering from that, the easiest way to deal with it is to clean it up in the real world. When you get your life organized in front of you, then slowly your mind begins to get cleaned up too. And in order to be truly financially prosperous, you have to be really organized in life. It just so happens that it translates really well to being organized in your finances, because an organized person who's organized with their money and their financial well-being, they know how much they have, they know how much they have coming in, they know how much they have going out, they maybe know what's going on with their investments and their savings. A disorganized person cannot tell you how much they really brought in. They definitely can't tell you where their money is going. It just seems to disappear because they don't know what they spent, because they're not keeping track of anything. And you're not going to keep track of anything financially if you're not organized in the real world. So being organized was definitely the first thing I noticed that was huge, and it translates to every area of life. The second thing that I've noticed that the most successful people do is they are very disciplined. What does that mean? I mean, what does it mean to be disciplined? Discipline is just a fancy word for habit. It's something you do all of the time. And if you aren't disciplined in life, you're definitely not going to be disciplined with your money. So let's just talk about life. I remember when I was a teenager, I'd get home from school, right? And I would throw my keys on the kitchen table and start making some quick lunch, because I just wanted to get back out of the house and go play with my friends and go do something. And I'll drop my bag and, I'd start cooking, do whatever I do, maybe watch a little TV. And the next thing you know, I wanted to get out of the house. Back in the day, before all this technology, it was keys and wallet. Today it's keys, wallet, cell phone, right? Make sure you got all your stuff. So I would start running around the house. Where did I drop my keys? Where did I put my wallet? Is it in my book bag? Is it upstairs in my bedroom? Like, where is all of this stuff? Very quickly, I noticed that being undisciplined about what I did, having bad habits with this, left me to be very disorganized, which we just talked about, and always made me late. I've seen the same thing now in life. Here we are decades later, and people will arrive to my house and they'll pop their keys down on the front table. They'll put their purse down on the couch. They'll walk into the kitchen and say hi and start petting the dog and doing whatever and take their sunglasses off. Next thing you know, it's time for them to go, and it's hours later, and they're like, has anyone seen my keys? Does anyone know where I put my jacket or left my sunglasses? Or they leave the sunglasses behind because now it's nighttime. They came during the day, and now they're not thinking about it because it wasn't together. They're undisciplined, and I know this is exactly what goes on at their home, and I know if I opened their car door and took a peek in, probably that's a little messy too. So being disciplined is amazing, because when you're disciplined in your outside life and in your day-to-day existence, then it's real easy to get disciplined with your finances. And that is definitely a quality that I see among the most successful people. The third thing that I noticed about the truly financially successful is that they know themselves. They know who they are. And I know this is a little bit more of a heady concept. You really have to think about this, but you're like, what do you mean? What do you mean, know yourself? Well, I think when we're all younger, when we're kids, we have all these aspirations, all these goals, and they're very clear too, right? You want to be a baseball player. She wants to be a race car driver. He wants to go to the moon. They want to be firefighters, and they're very clear about what they want to achieve. But along the way, that might get squashed, because creativity, standing out, is not what's usually rewarded in life. Conformity is what's rewarded. We want everybody to kind of be like that good little student who does it the way that we want it done. So that creativity, that standing out, gets squashed early on. Maybe you know what you want to do. Maybe you know you like to work with people. Maybe you feel like you want to be in healthcare, or you love animals and you want to work in that field. But along the way, someone tells you, whether it's a teacher, whether it's someone living in your own home, like a parent, but they say, hey, listen, you know how many people become professional baseball players? That's not realistic. You're probably not going to be a race car driver. You're not going to qualify for the NASA program and go to the moon, okay? So they squash those dreams. And what happens is you conform, right? Like a good little soldier, you get in line and you do what the world says you should do. And we forget. We forget who we are. We forget what makes us tick. We forget what gives us that drive, and we lose the most important thing, which is passion for what we do. You see, most truly successful people, whatever area they've been successful in, they have a passion. What's that saying? If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. They've known that, but they stuck to it. Yes, maybe they were outcast. Yes, maybe they weren't listening to their teachers' every word. Yes, maybe their friends, parents, and relatives told them that that was too aspirational and they might not be able to achieve it. But somewhere deep inside, they knew themselves and they hadn't forgotten who they really are. You know, there's a movie I love. It's an older movie called Hook with the great actor who's no longer with us, Robin Williams. And in that movie, Robin Williams plays Peter Pan. And now he's out of Neverland and he's an older man, and he gets sucked back into Neverland because he has to look for his children, right, who've been stolen by Captain Hook. Well, when he goes back, now he's older, so all the kids in Neverland who haven't grown up see him and say, that's not Peter Pan. Like, this is not Peter Pan. But half of the kids believe it is Peter Pan. And finally, one of the young boys goes up to him and kind of scrunches his face and pulls it back and makes him smile. And he goes, oh, there you are, Pan. Like, he sees right in his eyes that he is still there. It's inside him somewhere. Now, even at this point, Robin Williams still doesn't believe that he's Peter Pan because he's forgotten. Because he's forgotten about his passion. He's forgotten who he is. See, it is inside of us. And once we realize that, then we can go back. There's nothing wrong with following different paths and taking different strides and figuring yourself out. But the most successful people end up right back where they started. Something that they love to do, something that they have a passion about, and they pursue that. Now, I have to lay this fine magnifying glass across myself too, because people will ask me, they'll say, oh yeah, go out and find yourself, know who you are. Who are you? That's kind of a big question, right? But I'll tell you who I am, and I haven't changed. I'm the guy who gets it done. And I always have been. See, I'm an entrepreneur and I wanted to do a lot of things, but the main thing I wanted to do, which was be in the music business, I am. But I also have many other things going. And not too long ago, 5, 6 years ago, when we moved out to Las Vegas from the East Coast, I packed up all these books and I found this cool little notebook that I had made from pieces of paper that I stapled together. And I made notebooks. I would just take some paper, cut it up to a certain size, staple it in the middle and crease it. And I found this book called Long-Term Goals, and I found this book called Short-Term Goals. Of course, they were stuck together in a safe. When I thumbed through the long-term goals, I had achieved everything in there. Right? It was I was young, I was a teenager, but I was writing down things like, have assets, have gold and silver, have income property, own my own businesses. So all those things were in there. And I thought, all I really did was I set a goal, and little by little, I chipped away at that goal. Nothing happened overnight. Things took time. But who am I? I'm the guy who gets it done. I'm the goal-setting guy. I've always looked at goals that it's kind of like walking a tightrope. It's not going to be easy, but that tightrope, that walk, that difficult walk is what's going to separate goals. But on the other side of that rope is achievement. So that's what I'm constantly doing. I'm setting goals, and I'm the guy who gets it done. Along the way, of course, there might be failures, but you can't look at those failures as anything more than learning experiences, a minor setback. So truly, to achieve anything you want, you just have to walk that tightrope. You have to become a goal setter, and believe me, you will end up being a goal achiever. My name is Daniel F. Margasa. You are watching the Almost Criminal Millionaire channel, and if you like and enjoy learning about the topics of finance, money, and the health and wealth of your bank account, then please like and subscribe for more.